And someone that's been covering this story, that knows college football very well, has a podcast, writes about it, is everywhere. If you really want to know about college football, I suggest you follow what Ross Dellenger is doing, a national college football writer for Yahoo Sports. Ross, I'm Jason Ross. How are you this morning?
Hey, Jason, how you doing?
I'm doing well, doing well. I know you've talked about this news with Sacramento State and really all about college football and the constant movement, but let's start with the Hornets. Just maybe an overall thumbnail of what you think. It was a huge cost to do so, but what's your opinion on the Hornets' bold move here?
Yeah, it was probably the most, at least the guarantee of cash. It was probably the most costly move that we've seen in college football history. It probably won't remain that for long. It seems like the door is open for a lot of whether it's FCS to FBS or G6 to Power Conference. There's going to be a lot more big entry fees, I think, to move up in to elevate yourself. So yeah, it was. I know they'd been working, the president there, Luke Wood, and Mark Orr, the athletic director, to try really hard to get into FBS. They had the waiver denied in the summer, and so after that, I think they started to try to amass a plan to sort of buy their way into some league. Obviously the preference geographically was out at the Pac-12 in the Mountain West, but that didn't work out. And this seems to be the next best sort of option. So you have like a short-term deal, somewhat 5 years that you can elevate yourself and sort of prove that you belong, and then maybe you can go to one of those other leagues.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's the end game. It's the start point. It was a costly one, as you said. And I don't know how to quantify this, Ross. You probably would have a better idea. I know there will be an exposure valuation. I know there are some benefits of going up to the FBS. Is there any way to actually quantify that in the dollars, or that this would actually help the program?
Well, all you can go off of is sort of what the consultants that the Sacramento State had commissioned to do a study on that. And we've seen those studies before. There is, just historically, there is a significant jump in economic impact for the surrounding area in enrollment for the school when schools do move from FCS to FBS. There's been sort of proven over the years that is something that happens. But it is hard to sort of quantify.
Mm-hmm.
I think the consultants that Sacramento State had studied this said that around 250 a year is the economic impact. 250 million a year is the economic impact. Seems high, but I don't know how they get those numbers. But certainly, like, I think historically there is an impact. There's a positive impact, and there's certainly a positive impact on enrollment. Just the fact that you're going to be on ESPN and you're going to be eligible at least after a couple of years for the college football playoff and in bowls, all that. There's just more visibility in general in FBS.
How about the MAC itself? Look, obviously the whole college landscape is bizarre. I joked yesterday that teams even west of Sacramento, which would be Cal and Stanford, are even playing further east in the ACC. We got Northern Illinois in the Mountain West that could play Hawaii. Here's Sacramento State going all over the place. UCLA and Rutgers are in the same conference. All of it is bizarre. But just, Ross, what are the Hornets getting into here by joining the MAC conference?
Well, they're given what I've heard, they've spent like on the roster in NIL rev share. I would think that they would be in the top half, if not the top third of the MAC. I think a lot of MAC schools are probably, more on par with the upper tier of the FCS as opposed to other FBS when it comes to resources. It is, there's a reason they did this deal, right? The money involved is certainly helpful at a financially stressful time for them, for everybody, but especially for them, for those schools. So I think that Sac State sort of fits in budget wise pretty well, and honestly, should be able to make some noise in the conference. I
Mm.
think in football, and you look at the where they're recruiting to, and nobody else in the MAC obviously can offer sort of the recruiting hotbed. The sort of the weather, the livability of that area. They certainly got the advantage there.
Talking with Ross Dellenger, who covers college football for Yahoo Sports, college football writer, podcaster, knows the landscape very well. Yeah, I guess, the cost of doing business, we saw North Dakota State move in and move up. I know there's been numbers reported in the past that like a school like Memphis tried to pay $200 million to go into the Big 12 and other things. Do you think this is at a low point, a high point, like the housing market in a sense? Like if people try to jump in, are we seeing even higher figures in the future? Like what's your read on where this is going for college sports?
Yeah, I think we're probably going to see a lot more realignment in the next 2 to 3 years as we come upon a lot of the ending of the uh, TV deals in the Big 12 and in the Big 10. Those both end around, I think, 29, 30. And then you have the end of the college football playoff in 31, the contract. And you have the end of NCAA basketball tournament. The contract ends in 32. So you have a lot of these things. The SEC also has sort of a look into in their contract. So you have a lot of these things that come up around that 29 to 32 mark. And I think you probably will see a lot more realignment at the power conference level. That will include likely multi-million dollar entry fees from schools, in the G6 or in the Big 12 and ACC, sort of elevating their program to the Big 10 and SEC. I think that's sort of expected in that time frame. So, Sacramento State kind of followed the path that we've seen over the last few years. North Dakota State, like you mentioned, did it a week earlier, but a few years ago, SMU and Cal and Stanford all took sort of a decrease in distribution to get into the ACC. Same thing to Washington and Oregon into the Big Ten. So those were more like discounted rates, you might say, where Sacramento State actually is offering cash, and North Dakota State as well, offering actual cash. And I think we will see that at the power conference level in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, of the things, the agreements that Sacramento State has done here, like some of the stuff we've seen a lot of as in traveling with the team. I've made like the travel to Toledo or UMass or whatever. Like really, to me, once we get on a charter plane and we fly to Flagstaff or Northern Arizona or Missoula, Montana, and now in this case it's a longer flight, but it's the same plane side. I don't feel like that's that big of a deal. A lot of people have an issue seemingly of the Hornets paying for the travel costs back. I think in the big scheme of things seems like a smaller number compared to the money they're paying to get into the conference, maybe a future stadium and all that, and the non-rev share. Of the things they kind of agreed to, is there anything that gives you pause, or is it just first that initial big number they have put out there?
Well, I think the number, was supposed to be more like 12, like North Dakota State, but because they wanted to come in immediately this year, that number climbed to 18. It was $6 million for this year. They're paying that up front, and then $3 million for the next 4 years. So that was, sort of a jarring number, just because I'd heard more of the 10 to 12 range originally, but I guess because they wanted to come in immediately, that went up. Covering the air travel costs for other MAC schools, that's unusual in conferences.
Yeah.
Like paying for conference games and travel. I mean, we see that a lot, and Sacramento State, I think, has done that with other like non-conference type games, I think. but we don't see that. That is extraordinarily unusual in FBS within conferences. So that's the thing that was pretty interesting. I think that cost will probably run 3 to 4 million over the 5 years, from what I understand. The big planes that the MAC teams will probably use go for 100 to 150,000. I think so. If you do the math, that's in between 2.5 to 4 million, I would say.
Yeah, I mean these are big numbers, out of this world numbers, and we know, I guess, like we said, it's the cost of doing business. It's really a strange thing. And the one other thing, I don't even know if you would have an answer to this, Ross, but I think it's funny for both North Dakota State and Sacramento State. The additional $5 million just to move up is a curious number to me, and maybe it's not a scare tactic, but I don't think the NCAA in general wants teams leaving levels. But what does literally the NCAA do with that money, that figure, that $5 million to move paperwork? Like, what's happening there?
Well, that figure was certainly a it went from 5,000 to 5 million 2 years ago.
That's crazy.
Clearly as a disincentive.
Yeah.
As a disincentive to move up. I think a lot of leaders at the power conferences don't want FBS to grow bigger, and I think as a way to slow that down, they encouraged the changing of the entry fee. Now, what the NCAA does with it, I mean, given the House settlement, the NCAA owes hundreds of millions of dollars in back pay to athletes. So I'm assuming that will just go into the NCAA coffers and probably be directed there, but I'm not exactly sure what they do with it. But that was a sort of a missive sent to the NCAA from the power conferences. Too many, we sort of sometimes have a misunderstanding about the NCAA, right? It's just the schools. The schools are the NCAA. They make the decisions, and this was the schools and conferences at the power conference level wanting that number to, I think, go up to slow the movement from FCS to FBS. It probably hasn't slowed the movement as much as they thought, as we've seen the last week and a half.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. It's been interesting to follow your work on it. I know, enjoy your podcast as well. Your writing, that's Ross Dellenger, national college football writer, Yahoo Sports. Ross, thank you for sharing some perspective on this with us. We'd love to have you on again, and keep up the great work.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
All right. Thank you very much. Ross Dellenger, more of a national perspective on this. Yeah, it's big money. It's a lot of money to spend. Interesting that he thought the Hornets could be kind of a top third team in the MAC, and we'll see. I mean, look at after the 2-year kind of window, we'll see where they ultimately end up in that. All right, that's it for us for now. When we come back, we got Who's Hot, Who's Not. Still, Katie joins us at 9. A lot more to get to here on Sactown Sports.
The Sactown Sports 11.